So most people have the perception of food that food comes from the grocery store.
Do
And
they really though?
yeah, most people think that's the source of food. When I ask people where does your food come from, they like I get it from the grocery store.
Ye-
They don't instantly think a farmer somewhere
oh,
created
definitely not.
this.
Definitely not.
And so they look at the grocery store as the source, the origin of food. And most of the food in the grocery store isn't food at all. It's just like what I just said, it's food products that has traveled thousands of miles, been sprayed and irradiated. How important is it that we know where our food comes from today, given that? Because picking back in on what you just said ago, in my opinion, lab grown meat has been probably what people have been eating for the last 5 to 10 years.
True. Absolutely.
And now that nobody has, the whole population hasn't fallen out over it, they're saying, let's make it go.
I mean, the whole population hasn't fallen out. They said 7 out of 10 of the young people who would be drafted to go into a military from the United States would not be eligible
Yeah.
because of obesity, because of criminal records, and because of mental conditions.
Yeah.
So we have fallen. I think it's because it's not traceable.
Yeah.
I think it's because these pandemics cannot be, or these epidemics can't be traced to one source.
Right.
Is the only reason they talk about it, because there's a compounding of toxins.
Yeah.
Right now, there's a compounding of toxins from air to microplastics to whatever. I may have missed. I didn't even let you get to your question, I think.
No. You're answering it because the thing is like how important is it that we know where our food is coming
Oh,
from?
right.
Because now we start to understand there's lab grown meat. We know that genetically modified foods were created in the 1990s and went wildfire in the 2000s. You think about
That's somebody's whole life.
yeah. Yeah, so for the last 20 years, let's take a 20-year-old. Your son, 24.
Absolutely. And the
If it
difference in his experience has blown his mind and my mind, because for him, it's just his lifestyle.
yeah.
But now he's 24 and his friends have had all these cavities, all these different, how do you call it? Like contagious infectious diseases, or
Yeah.
even just a regular earache. And he didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
He never experienced any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And he's looking at me like that. And I was like, this is because of the decisions your mother and I made that people thought were unpopular, that the family wasn't happy about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why aren't you feeding him this? Why aren't you? But he ain't got no cavities now, no allergies, no attention deficit disorder, got a full head of
Conditions.
hair. Like, he's fine.
Yeah.
And he's looking at his friends going, man, these people are falling apart at 22.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you juxtaposition that, you take him over here, and then a child in the underserved neighborhood,
Oh,
our
man.
community, who has grown up eating a standard American diet, 70% processed, a large majority when you're in an underserved community, coming from places like Family Dollars and the dollar store, and you start to look around and you understand why we're so sick.
Yeah, when you ask how important is it though, it's it's like adding a weight onto a very already heavy to-do list.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If somebody's living in any kind of situation in America right now, then to think about the origins of my, or sourcing my food properly, and where the origin, man, it sounds like another problem for a person to have to think
Yeah.
about. You feel what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds like another burden just to live. Like I gotta. So yeah, I understand that it's important. I have been spending the last 20 years of my life trying to address that,
Yeah.
and not ever really wanting to, but being um matured and guided into it because of the way I came into agriculture.
Yeah.
Because I came into agriculture from a different perspective, I've always looked at it as a hustler or an artist would look at it,
Yeah.
right? Because I've been trying to feed my children this whole time.
Yeah.
I don't have a farm that my grandparents handed down to me. I didn't even know how to use a tractor or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm out here thinking about food from the perspective of, how do I get people to show up to a farmer's market? How do I get them to eat it? What kind of recipes do I have to put out? All this. And then the content comes into, I mean, how many farmers are making content 20 years ago or 10 years ago? You know what I mean?
Right.
So now I was thinking about how to market it.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
And because I know who needs the food the most are people who it can't be an extra burden for them to go and look for good food.
They already got to wait on them.
It's too much, man, to ask somebody whose schools for their children are substandard, whose medical care is substandard, whose housing is substandard, to be like, oh, you shouldn't eat that because it's, not organic or it's processed.
Yeah.
Nigga, they know it's processed.
Yeah,
That's not, you ain't telling them.
100%.
They're not dumb. They looking at you like, okay. And so where should I get the food you talking about? On the bus. Where am I going to get it from?
Yeah.
And so that's been part of my drive as I've traveled, as I've seen different parts of the world. I remember being in Kenya my first time in 2007, being in Nairobi, and a homeless woman coming up to me with her children asking for money to get food. And I remember thinking, we're on the equator.
Yeah.
We're on the equator. If there's ever a spot where there's an abundant amount of food,
Yeah.
it's on the equator.
Yeah.
So why does she not have food? It's not because it's not available. You feel what I mean?
Yeah.
It's because it's strategically monitored. It's strategically maneuvered. The way food moves around the planet is strategic.
Yeah.
It's not by accident.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it should fall on the consumer to find and locate good food.
Yeah.
You feel what I'm saying?
Right. And
That should be somebody else's. That should be like, why do we have a government if it's not about having food?
yeah. And we've been sort of cheated in a way and programmed in a way where we don't connect ourselves with the ability to create food.
Man, we don't connect ourselves with creativity hardly at all.
Yeah.
Because even what we've seen happen to hip hop over that same year, from
Time span.
what happened? I mean, hip hop used to only be about educating us.
Right.
That's what I tuned into the music for, was to hear PE put Minister Farrakhan in the beginning of a song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like trying to get some,
Professor Griff.
you trying to get some knowledge. Like,
Yeah.
what was the point of KRS-One? What was the point of MC Light or any of these people? And so now you listen to it, and what is happening is it's reflective of the fact that our children, our youth are toxic all the way up to the brainstem.
Yeah.
And so what else could come out of them?
Yeah.
Right? And then it's about who is controlling it corporately, who wants what music to go. Same thing with food.
Yeah.
Same cartel.
Yeah. And I always say, I always make this analogy, when you squeeze an orange, you're never going to get apple juice. So whatever you put in, whatever you are, that's what you are.
It's simple.
And it's important for us to know and understand that we have to put different things in us if we want to get a different output.
Which means looking at land, back to your original point, looking at land and property differently.
Yes.
I think for us as Black people, or as people in general right now, home ownership is very challenging and unlikely for a lot of Americans.
Yeah.
So for those of us in the Black community, it's typically our older relatives who have property.
Yeah.
We need to cultivate a relationship with them that demonstrates that we are going to value not the house, but the land that the family's house is on.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And say, okay, if grandma is the one who has a house, if Uncle Earl is the one who has a house, he's too old. Let's get over there and put some fruit trees in, put a garden in, trap some rainwater. Like, think about how, because this is not for him alone, it's for the entire family.
Yeah.
Whoever has the land has to now be the hub for the family.
Gotcha.
The safe space.
Right. The protector, the key, the gatekeeper.
Yeah, because everybody else is subject to eviction.
Right. And so, as I'm thinking about food again, not food products, I first had a personal experience with food as medicine or healing myself of hypertension, sleep apnea, and obesity. And now I have this experience that I now share with other people to put them on the same roadmap. But the more and more I realize how sick our community is and how much we're at the bottom of every health metric,
Man.
what I'm starting to realize, we're the sickest, we died the earliest, and sometimes it feels hopeless, and the reason why I say that is because sometimes I'll look across the socioeconomic stratus, and what I find is, and this isn't just how how I observe things, but even according to many statistics, it doesn't matter if black people make money or don't make money,
Man, come
they
on.
still are at the bottom of the total pole when it comes to health. And so when I look at our diet itself, the African American diet is the most poisonous, toxic diet there is in the world. So the question I have is, what role do food deserts and food inequality play in us having all these health disparities as opposed to the percentage that is based on poor food choices?
Oh, yeah. The other day, last night, as a matter of fact, I was in a grocery store, Sprouts. It was kind of later on in the evening time after doing a day of farming, and I went in, and as I'm getting up to the front area, they have the self checkout
Yep.
and they have the cashiers, but there's no checkout people. There's only self checkout.
Yeah.
So I go to the self checkout. I start checking myself out. A woman walks up and she says, "I guess we don't have any choice, huh?" And I said, "No, but if this is the only thing open, then we ain't even talking about choice."
Right.
So this idea of food choices, if this is the only thing in your surrounding area,
Yeah.
then it's not about your bad choices.
Yeah.
You feel what I mean? It's the same thing with saying, well, if the education system in the inner city isn't serving the people, it's because they sending their kids to the wrong schools. Well, damn, why'd you open up a public school with my tax dollars and put substandard teachers and substandard books in it?
Right.
Like, I still paid the taxes.
Right.
So it's all about that. It's all about not only um, food availability, it's also about marketing.
Yeah.
Who are they marketing bad food to?
Right.
And how do they market the bad food to us?
And why is it so prevalent? Like you never see, like back in the days you used to have church's chickens. They're pretty much non-existent now, but the only place you would see them is in underserved black neighborhoods.